a stuntman on a horse pulled in front of me with a horse behind him. We hit that horse and we went over the top of it and went bing, 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 bing. I have no idea where the horse wound up, but I know I wound up kind of flat on my back like a sack of potatoes.
Welcome to A Word on Westerns. Today we are thrilled to have a leading lady who worked with John Wayne. She worked with Robert Wagner. Today she's going to work with me. Let's give a big hand to Stefanie Powers.
Can I put that in my resume?
Well, it's up to you, dear.
Oh, good.
Well,
first of all, I have to thank Gene Autry because I never thought I'd be sitting here when I first met Gene. All these years later, I had the great, good joy of having spent time with he and Jackie in Ireland when we were guests of Budweiser beer, when they would run the Budweiser Irish Derby. And everybody was sort of responsible for having to bring along with them then this kind of gang of friends that all that went to 5 or 6 different events in subsequent years. And we all, it was like a big Irish house party. We all had to come with our own party routines, our music, our numbers. And so Gene and I first bonded when we started singing these old Mexican cowboy songs, you know. Allá en Rancho Grande, we did that a lot. But one day he said, well, we're going to Ireland and we better rehearse. So we went through this entire repertoire of Mexican songs that he had made famous on the radio. And that was our performance that year. I really enjoyed knowing him, and I'm so thrilled to be in this space that has his name on it.
well, it's special, and Jackie, I know, sends her best to you.
I'm thrilled.
People don't realize, I know they love you for heart to heart, as I do, everybody does, but they don't, and of course the girl from U.N.C.L.E. too, but they don't realize your Western background. And you must have been 12 years old when you started.
Yeah, just about, yes. I grew up with horses. My stepfather bred racehorses, and I was crazy about horses from the day I popped onto this earth, I think. One of his prized possessions was a silver saddle that belonged to Tom Mix. That was somehow lost in the shuffle when his breeding farm was sold to Desi Arnaz. But that held a place of great honor in the tack room, and his tack room was really something very special. Wasn't allowed to go in there very often, but especially unsupervised, that was a very bad thing for me to do.
Did your horseback riding then come in handy when you were making Westerns?
Well, I wasn't really allowed to ride on the ranch because it was a breeding ranch. There were studs, and there were, there were brood mares and all the assorted highly motivated, hormonal horses there. And so running around on horseback was not exactly encouraged. But all the kids in the neighborhood, and it was a pretty interesting neighborhood in Corona, California, the next farm was belonged to a man called Rex Ellsworth. All the Ellsworth kids had these ponies that we could go ride in the fields with, and we played cowboys and Indians, and when the fields were all turned over and nice and soft, we'd shoot each other off of ponies and take horse falls and all sorts of things. So I was predisposed for stunt work, which did come in handy, especially on that movie that Clint Walker and I did in Mexico.
That film was Hard Case.
Hard Case.
Yes.
There was a second unit director who was also hired to do the stunt coordination by the name of Hal Needham. This guy who I met a few years earlier. And of course, we'd already had an experience with horses on McClintock. They had brought, I had to do a ride on McClintock out of this beautiful house, down a hill and off into the distance to go see my father, John Wayne.
I hope you'll have the good manners to not pry into other people's business. Your mother's and mine.
Pretty good shot, Daddy.
And they wanted a Palomino horse, and for some unknown reason, the wrangler got very, very picky about not letting me get on this horse and work it a little to know what I was dealing with. So I wasn't really able to understand, and I don't know if any of you are horse people, but you know that Palominos are all a little bit screwy. And
Except for Trigger.
I did the ride, or the stunt girl did the ride. There was a stunt girl that did the ride first, and then the word came back from Hollywood that, because we were working in Arizona, that they saw her face. So I just had to get on board, you know, which of course I hated. But there was this sort of schizoid horse, and so we made the ride. We were going hell-bent for leather, and I started to, you know, rein the horse in.
Morning, Daddy.
And that was not happening. There was, in fact, no response whatsoever from the horse, and that horse put its head down and did this wonderful little thing called getting the bit between its teeth. And we were headed off into the blue horizon, except the blue horizon contained a barbed wire fence. So as I'm heading toward this barbed wire fence, trying to do everything I possibly can, and I got my feet out of the stirrups at least, and pulling this horse, a stuntman on a horse pulled in front of me with a horse behind him. We hit that horse and we went over the top of it and went bing, 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 bing. I have no idea where the horse wound up, but I know I wound up kind of flat on my back like a sack of potatoes. I guess I might have been knocked out for a second, but all I remember was John Wayne was over me with a thing, you know, tears were coming out of his eyes. He was so scared that I was hurt. And I said, "Did you get the fall?"
Hi, I'm Rob Word. I hope you enjoyed A Word on Westerns. It's an interview series we do. We post a new one every single week. If you missed any, just sign up for this little baby right here. Whoa.